It is color mixing and matching time, and it's about to get really interesting, y'all. So for your second assignment, you're doing another 5x7. Use your chromatic gray that you mixed to tone the ground. Remember, use the turpentine to thin that out. And then with another neutral color, I used this burnt umber. Thin it out with turpentine, and you can lightly kind of sketch out the shapes from your composition. Now I'm putting the black and white painting alongside this one, and then you can see the actual object here. This is really helpful, especially since we're going to be trying to keep the value contrast that we got in the first piece, but just in this next painting, add color. Okay, specifically add color temperatures, and in some cases, a little bit of intensity too. Okay, so I've tried to position the camera so you can see the palette and all of those references. Okay, all right, so as always, this is our very first layer. We always start with the background color and then the middle ground colors, and then only in the end the foreground colors. As always, we're going to mix all of the main colors that we need for these objects before painting them. Okay, so I'm going to start with this area back here behind the oil can. As I mentioned in the project criteria, you may not mix black and white together to use any actual gray anywhere in this composition. So what that means is I'm going to have to look at the color a little bit more closely back here. It's highly likely that that color is actually a color. It's not just gray. It's certainly not black. And it's not pure black because look, in my first painting, I did not establish it as pure black, okay? So when I look at it, let's see. The way I'm gonna gauge the color relationships is I'm holding up this palette knife, I'm closing one eye, and I'm making sure to tilt the palette knife so that it's getting hit a little bit by this light, the light that's hitting the still life. I'm gonna hold it over the area I'm trying to match with one eye closed, and what I'm looking for is for the edge of the palette knife to almost look like it disappears. Almost look like it disappears because the colors are so similar. So this is actually close. This is burnt umber. So it was very close. So it looks like when I was using this swatch here, when I'm comparing what's on my palette knife to what's beside it, visually it's beside it, but really it's behind it, that back plane, the burnt umber seems like it's a little too cool. And the color I'm trying to mix and match should be slightly warmer. The same darkness, just a little bit warmer. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a little bit of yellow ochre, like the tiniest little bit, and see if I can change the temperature of that color just enough to make it warmer, but not enough to lighten it or turn it yellow. You know, this is where your color grids are gonna come in really handy. Oh, I got it. Yeah, your color grids are gonna come in really handy with trying to figure out how to change a color a lot or a little bit. So as I kind of overlap this, I'm trying to make sure y'all can see it in the camera, okay, with the area behind it, this is a pretty perfect match. So I'm gonna keep that color. I'm going to use it. I'm going to mix a little bit more because I'm pretty sure I did not mix enough. Now notice where I'm going to put it on the palette. I'm going to put it, you can see, kind of farther back on the palette because it's the background. And then as I mix the middle ground, I'll put it a little bit closer to me on the palette, and then the foreground colors will be the closest to me on the palette. So I'm setting up and using the space of the palette in a way that makes sense for like what colors I'm matching at any given time. So this back plane in the painting is relatively solid. There's only a little bit of variation, and so I'm just going to mix one color for now. For the ground plane, however, I've got a couple of different values of color. Now remember, the values of color are the most important to match. Okay, even if the temperature's a little off or the hue's a little off, the value can't be off. It has to be the right dark and the right light and the right middle tones. So what I see is I've got back here, oh no, y'all can't see. Okay, there we go. Y'all can see the shadow shape, and that's a different color than what's around it. So really I just have two main values of color that I need to mix and match to be able to continue on, okay? So for the ground plane, I'm going to mix two colors, not one. You're not going to mix one color and then apply it all over the ground plane and then go over it with your shadow color. That doesn't work with oil paint. It doesn't work at all with oil paint because it dries so slowly. You're going to apply both of those at once. So what I'm doing now is the same little strategy I used before, and I'm going to tilt the palette knife so that it doesn't get too much glare, and I'm looking behind it. So I'm actually trying to match this zone, okay? And so when I look at this, it looks a bit dark, yeah? I don't know if y'all can see that. It looks a bit dark. So I need to lighten it so that it matches the surroundings. Let's see what else I need to do. I need to look at it. I need to lighten it, and I need to warm it up a good bit. So how could I accomplish that? Let's see. I'll look at my palette while I do this. So this is the color I have. This is burnt umber. If I just lighten it, so if I just use white and add to it, titanium white actually cools off the colors as it lightens them. Okay, that does not really give me the color. Well, it actually does give me something close. But even so, let's see. If we have burnt umber and we mix a lighter color that's warm with it, that's not white, let's see what happens. It will lighten that color a little bit more subtly, and it's going to warm it up too. See? So I might compare kind of siding. So what actually happened, let me pull y'all back up so you can see. What actually happened is that white, even though it cooled off my color mixture quite a bit, maybe matches over here even a little bit better. Even though it cooled off my color mixture a little bit, it's still the right warmth. So y'all can see how the edge of the palette knife almost disappears because the color is so very similar to what's behind it. So this is how I check color. I put it on the palette knife, I hold it up over the color I'm trying to match, and I make sure that it's a, an exact match or close to it. If you can't get an exact match, don't freak out. If you can't get an exact match, just make sure you can match the value. So what am I going to do? I need to mix a little bit more of this. Just those two colors. So the quote-unquote black board behind the object has zero black in it. Very interesting. I'm going to save that other color because I might use it later. Alright, I'm going to try to mix the shadow color. I'm going to see if this darker color I mixed earlier, I'm going to see if that works. Nope, it doesn't. So if I'm trying to mix and match that shadow color, this color that I mixed for the background, I'm just seeing if that works. And it looks like it's too light and it's too warm. So I'm going to use the burnt umber again. Let me see. As a reference. Yeah, the burnt umber by itself, let me get, see, I can see too. The burnt umber by itself looks like it's the right darkness, but it's too warm. So I need to find a color to mix in with it that makes it a little bit cooler without making it lighter. So I'm going to choose ultramarine blue. It's also a dark color. It's not going to lighten it. It's definitely going to cool it off. So the colors that you mix into the paint, they're going to change the paint in a predictable way. they're always going to change or they're going to affect value and temperature and intensity, and sometimes hue too. So your job is to try to be as deliberate as you can so that you change what you want to change in the color without altering what you want to keep. So look, we've got the background, we've got the middle ground colors. So that's the background colors, and then we have the color that goes here and also the shadow color. So the next colors I'm going to try to mix are going to be the colors for the oil can.